For a period of over 10 years in NASCAR, nothing went hand in hand more than Tony Stewart and road courses. He consistently led the way twice a year at these unique venues on opposite ends of the country in Sonoma, California and Watkins Glen, New York. He rapidly joined the elite company of one of his fiercest competitors on the track in this category in Jeff Gordon and got the best of him on many occasions. This is just one of a plethora of reasons why Stewart is in the Hall of Fame and forever an all-time legend in all of racing. But by number of wins alone, he found more success at the historic Watkins Glen International, and that's what I'm going to be covering in this case. Let's go. Tony Stewart got thrust into racing as early as he could remember, and it naturally became life as he knew it. He spent the young part of his life rising up through the midget sprint car and USAC series looking to reach the ultimate goal of Indy cars, the pinnacle of open wheel racing. He acquired a taste of the IRL with that edge, but eventually found himself in stock cars in the late 90s, and the rest is history. But one style of racing that was few and far between at the time became his niche, and only a handful of drivers in the field could say the same: road course racing. At this time in the Cup Series, it was typically Jeff Gordon versus the field on these occasions, and Tony was the one to step up and challenge him. These two would go on to be absolute titans at this skill, and Stewart made his mark in a big way. Watkins Glen is an 11-turn high-speed road course located in the Finger Lakes region of the state of New York. It's had several different layouts over the years, but today it has 3 long straightaways and an inner loop followed by a tricky carousel. Its odd guardrail positioning combined with fast speeds and tight-angled turns have created some violent wrecks over the years and brought in loyal fans by the boatload. It was opened in 1956 and hosted a slew of different auto racing series such as Formula One, Trans Am, IMSA, and IndyCar. It's unfortunately claimed the lives of several drivers over the years, including J.D. McDuffie, and the track actually went bankrupt in 1981 when Formula One left. But it got a renovation done shortly after and the facility was reborn. NASCAR would come periodically, starting in 1957, but never on an annual basis. They would finally return permanently in 1986, and still today the series is a mainstay. The early signs of Stewart's dominance began to show right off the bat in his first trip to the Glen in '99. He didn't win, but he had about as rough of a day as you can imagine without going behind the wall.
Tony Stewart left pit road with the second gas can attached. Now, as he came onto the track, he shook it loose. And then just a few minutes after that, we saw some fuel escaping.
A lot of fuel escaping. That's something you don't want to see. You see that guy back here? He's working on that, trying to get that connector a little bit better the next time so he can get that gas can loose.
More trouble for Tony Stewart. He misses the inner loop. And
okay, as long as he slows down and lets the cars go by that he passed and gets back in his position, that's okay. And that looks like he did that.
Despite all this, he ended up 6th. After what seemed like he'd be lucky to finish on the lead lap. Fast forward to his first championship season in 2002, and he would finally capture victory after leading 34 of the 90 laps and somewhat controversially get a head start in the final laps on a restart, holding off Ryan Newman and others.
1 lap to go at Watkins Glen. Can any of these people behind Tony Stewart take the win away?
There he goes.
that was pretty early.
What a week it's been for Tony Stewart. Spent much of this week in turmoil. After the incident after Indianapolis last Sunday, thought he might lose his job in this car. The fine from NASCAR, the fine from his sponsor. He has agreed to undergo anger management counseling, trying to overcome the temper problems that have dogged him throughout his career. Today, he's funneled that anger into a powerful drive. As he comes to the final corner, Tony Stewart is going to win at Watkins Glen, his 3rd win of the season, and his 1st win at this historic road course. Stewart's your victor.
Nevertheless, it held up, and he would land in victory lane for the first of several times. So now we get to 2004, and one of the most determined, gutsy performances of Stewart's career. To put it in perspective, this race was won under crappy circumstances. As an already established superstar and champion of the sport, he was poised to keep some momentum built up in a rocky season to this point and get to win number 2 at the track. In the opening laps, he would swap the lead with Gordon back and forth, but as the early portion of the race unfolded, a major problem started to arise inside the 20 car.
For the lead, Tony
Tony Stewart is chasing Jeff Gordon, but something's possibly up with Tony, we hear, Dave.
And it is literally up with Tony. He's got stomach cramps going on right now. He wants to get out of that race car. Hates to even think about it running second. They're looking for one of the road course drivers that may not have gone home yet, specifically right now, Scott Pruitt. Scott, if you're out there, you might want to report to the 20 pit because they would like to put you in the car.
That's right, Smoke was stricken with a stomach bug, and it hit him at the worst possible time. It was becoming an ever-growing possibility that he wouldn't even be able to last much longer, and a replacement driver was being searched. But another issue on top of what was already becoming a firestorm is Tony had a car more than capable of winning this race, and spent most of it at the front. What driver as competitive as Stewart wants to get out of a race car this good unless they're not breathing? The Home Depot team was stuck between a rock and a hard place, knowing if Tony had to be removed from the race, their chances of winning were all but over. The team eventually got to road course ringer Boris Said, and he made himself available if needed. While Said was a very respectable option, he himself said he wasn't even 100% capable of operating the car, and his size difference from Stewart was problematic as far as fitting in the seat. What could possibly solve this chaos and throw water on the fire that was spreading more and more on the situation? Well, that would be Tony himself. On a mid-race pit stop, the crew handed him a drink to hopefully relieve some of the pain to make it at least bearable to work with, but that wasn't going to cut it for him. Despite all this drama, he worked his way back through the field after a cycle of pit stops put other drivers with different strategies out front and retook the lead from Robbie Gordon. He soldiered on and gave everything he had, and it looked more and more like he could actually pull it off. But his ailment wasn't quite out of the woods just yet. Tony knew what he had to do to put an end to this nightmare and took care of business.
Didn't want any changes on the car. The car is coming to me. And as we found out, Tony's health is coming to him as well. He feels better. He feels like he can stay in it and win this race. A 4-tire change, no adjustments to the chassis.
We all know why he was feeling better. This kind of thing just doesn't magically go away in the position he was in. Let's just say Tony weighed a little less by the end of this thing. He would go on to hold off a charge from Canadian road course master Ron Fellows, lead 46 laps and claim his second triumph in the Finger Lakes, and rush to victory lane like he never had before. He gingerly climbed out of his car, gave a fist pump to the crowd, said,
You gonna be okay?
Yeah, we'll be right back.
All right.
and never came back. He was obviously still in a less than ideal condition. They did a follow-up report on him, but it was the victory that was never celebrated for the 20 team. It's easy to go back and joke and laugh about this, but how many other drivers could pull this off in such ugly circumstances? This race was the epitome of who Tony was as a driver. He wanted to race and win at all costs, no excuses. To be in the pain he was in, and be so close to having to bail and ultimately surrender the race, but instead suck it up and do what every driver fears inside his own car and deal with it the rest of the race, he deserved legend status from this race alone. Now we get to the very next year, in the midst of his second championship season in 2005. I hate to be anticlimactic here, but there was nothing to this race but Tony simply annihilating the field from start to finish. Immediately as the green flag waved, he jumped out to a comfortable lead. He led a whopping 83 of the 90 laps to cruise to his third win at the Glen, and he swept the road courses that year by winning Sonoma 2 months prior.
Tony Stewart, the new road course king in the NASCAR Cup Series, sweeps off of 7, makes the right-hander. He can see the checkered flag now. Tony Stewart goes back-to-back and wins at the Glen.
It was clear at this point that he had completely reached the level of elite company with Jeff Gordon, and at this very time, with Gordon having a dismal year, Tony was the new best road racer. But just when you think you've seen it all, something unforeseen comes along. The 2007 edition of Cup Racing at the Glen arrives. This race had everything: wacky wrecks, an altercation, a lengthy red flag, a fan climbing in Matt Kenseth's window for an autograph. Never mind that, let's focus on the race. Early on, it was once again Tony and Gordon battling it out as the chase for the Cup loomed. You see a pattern here? Gordon was having one of the best seasons of his career and looked to have the dominant car of the day. He led the most laps and didn't have many challenges throughout the race, but Stewart did.
Well, Tony Stewart around. Big surprise. That's into turn 1.
Running up towards the front, he wheel hopped going into the treacherous turn 1 and lost several positions, setting him back in traffic. But he would claw his way back forward with a really good race car and find himself back in position to win. On a late restart, Gordon once again took off and was on his way to a dominant victory. Tony was doing all he could to hold second, but astonishingly, Gordon himself wheel hopped and overused the brakes, spinning him out of contention in the final laps. All Stewart needed to do was hold off Carl Edwards, who was on his bumper, but to no avail. It would be his 4th triumph at the track and 3 in the last 4 years.
And Carl goes off the racetrack.
Edwards off in the gravel. Here comes Tony Stewart out of turn 11. And congratulations to Team Chevy driver Tony Stewart, winner of the Nextel Cup at Watkins Glen.
For his final Watkins Glen victory of his illustrious career, it came in the first year as an owner driver of Stewart-Haas Racing in 2009. The race was postponed to Monday due to rain, and Stewart rolled off 13th on the grid. He was definitely not a factor early, as rookie out of Australia Marcus Ambrose paced the field and then gave way to Jimmy Johnson and Kyle Busch. On the first pit stop, Tony told the team exactly what needed to be done to adjust the car to make it capable of winning. He worked his way towards the front soon after and eventually passed Busch on the restart and really never looked back. But Busch and Ambrose wouldn't go away quietly. In fact, Ambrose had him in his sights until the very end. Fuel was a concern, but Stewart held off the 47 and saved enough to make one more trip to Victory Lane at the historic facility, and in his interview, claiming it his house.
Looks like they're going to make it. This is going to be the critical corner here.
The one car, Martin Truex, we are told, slowing over in the back of the course. He may be out of fuel.
Great run by Tony Stewart today, though. Showed why he's so good.
Coming out of turn 11, it will be official. Tony Stewart wins at Watkins Glen.
This is my house right here. We ran really well over the last 7-8 years here, so
Hard to argue with that. Let me back it up with the stats. 5 wins, 8 top 5s, 11 top 10s, 225 laps led, and an average finish of 9.94. Yeah, that checks out. And if these stats seem a little minimal to you, keep in mind they only go to Watkins Glen once a year. There's many things to remember Tony for, and it's not all pretty, but one thing is for certain, he was a road course ace and a pure racer with the heart and will to win at any cost. It's what led him to 49 Cup wins and 3 championships, and eternal glory in the auto racing universe. Let's all give it up for Smoke.